Well, that right there, that's a win for the Indianapolis Colts, baby. That is 1-2 for this football team. Was it the prettiest win in the entire world? No, not at all. And it wasn't against the best football team either. But ultimately, it doesn't really have to be the prettiest team. And you certainly can't hold the fact that the Bears aren't very good against the Indianapolis Colts when they win the game. And for those of you who were able to kind of catch the preview prior, I did upload it a little bit late. I picked the Colts to lose. And listen, if I'm ever happy to be wrong, this is one of those moments. Now, if we're being honest, in a football sense, that game did play out exactly how I expected it to. The reason I picked the Colts to lose coming into that game was simple. You're looking at, in the Chicago Bears and the Indianapolis Colts, two young quarterbacks who are struggling to find their footing in this league at the early parts of the season. And I simply just felt that the Bears defense was going to make more plays than the Colts defense, and that was going to result in a sad day for Colts fans. Now, lucky for us, the Colts defense made more plays. Latu, what a clutch play he ended up making at the end of that game that I thought maybe was the difference, right? It's very hard to narrow it down to one play. It's funny because I'm sitting there literally before that ball was snapped. I'm on my couch, as I do, right? We sit here, we judge the guys as we sit on our couch with our hand in our pants. Well, maybe some of us have our hand in our pants. Other people maybe keep it out of the pants while the game is on, but that's neither here nor there. My point is simple. I'm sitting there looking, saying, not for anything. You're just waiting for Latu to make his mark on any game at any moment, right? We have him there for a reason. And then sure enough, he gets that quick get off the ball. I thought he was being held and then gets a strip sack right on command as I thought about it. I don't know if it's a sixth sense or what, but that's, you like to see that type of thing. I don't know. I'm not going to take credit for it, whatever. Really great play by Latu. That's all I'm trying to say. And despite an uneventful game overall for the Indianapolis Colts, I do feel like there's kind of a lot to talk about here, really primarily related to Anthony Richardson and where he's at. A lot of the talk has been about this Colts defense, about Gus Bradley. And it's not to say that that's unjustified or anything like that, but I do think back to week one, and my reaction coming out of that game was that the Colts, or rather their defense, was not the reason they lost that game to the Texans. And I took a lot of flack for that. You go back and look at the comments. I mean, people were calling me out of my mind. I happen to think that take is aging well because my reason was very simple. It's not to say the Colts defense had a great day in week one against the Texans. It's that the offense wasn't really doing that much to help them out. They weren't moving the ball with any form of consistency. I mean, the time of possession, sure, you could look at the defense, say you got to stop the run, but also the offense has to sustain drives. They got to move the ball. And our offense is struggling to do that right now overall. And really more specifically, Anthony Richardson is struggling to do that right now. Now, it's nothing that I didn't expect. It's nothing that all of us should not have expected. But I do get the sense that our incredibly patient and reasonable and football-minded fan base may be starting to get a little antsy with Anthony Richardson and his progression. So I want to talk about today why I think you should still feel good about the prospects of him being our franchise quarterback moving forward. But that's not before we discuss the game itself. After all, this is a game reaction, right? But before we get into it, you know what it is. My name is Justin. This right here is the Ride the Bench Colts podcast. As always, I ask anyone watching on YouTube and enjoying the show, go ahead, shoot it a like. It's going to help me get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. Of course, audio listeners, leave a 5-star review if you're enjoying the show. Let the people know how much you are enjoying it. Subscribe if you want to be a part of the journey. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers at some point during the season. I mean, 4,000 would be even cooler, but we take baby steps over here. In fact, let's just start with getting one more subscriber, okay? If you're someone that keeps coming back enjoying, maybe you're here for the first time and you're enjoying what you're seeing, please go ahead, subscribe. Lets YouTube know that I'm a page that's worth showing to other people. But without further ado, housekeeping's out of the way. Let's get into the game. And I know I kind of set this thing up with Anthony Richardson, but I do want to start by talking about the defensive side of the ball because, hey, I mean, they came out and took care of business today. Now, am I impressed by the defensive performance from the Indianapolis Colts today? No, not particularly, if I'm to be 100% honest with you. I mean, the Bears' offense up to this point has been really, really bad, particularly up front, which is where the Colts are supposed to have his strength, right? But the team did do what they were supposed to do on the defensive side of the ball, so I can't hold that against them, right? They made the Bears' offense look like the Bears' offense for most of that game. That's perfectly fine. And if I'm to be fair, I'll give Gus Bradley some credit for switching up the looks early in this game. That's exactly what we wanted to see from Gus Bradley. I don't know, you want to call it lazy or stubborn, whatever it is. It's just kind of uninspired sometimes, the way he calls the plays on the defensive side of the football. The first half was not one of those games. He did what he had to do in terms of making it difficult on Caleb Williams. Got a lot of movement up front on the defensive line. They were shifting where those guys were aligned in terms of whether they're in the 3, the 5, all that type of stuff. Don't need to get into all the technicals. Point being, Gus Bradley in the first half of that game particularly did a very, very good job of making Caleb Williams guess what the Colts were doing, as opposed to just saying, here's what we're doing, try to beat it. Because when people try to beat it, they tend to beat it, right? So good stuff from Gus Bradley. Not enough for him to be off the hot seat in my mind, but if we're talking about the game itself, that's good work from Gus. Congratulations. We'll revisit this topic next week, right? Nick Cross, if I'm to start calling out individual players, I said, I forget if it was week 1, week 2. Man, I'm very impressed with what he brings to the table. That's a kid that plays really, really fast. He's a really, really young football player. Of course, there's improvements that have to be made, but I don't know. He's one of these dudes. His speed out there, like his football speed, I don't know what his 40 was, but just how his instincts are impressive out there. I find myself impressed with Nick Cross just about every single week. It's not to say that there's no plays that are bad out of him, right? That's the nature of the game. He's not a perfect football player. But Nick Cross, I think, is really turning into kind of a good bet that the Indianapolis Colts made, that he would come out and play well. I think that's what he's doing. Zaire Franklin, that right there is the guy that we've grown accustomed to seeing. That's why he's one of my favorite players on the team. Nice to see that guy make an appearance versus the Chicago Bears. Really nice to see him come out, respond in the way he did, take charge of this defense, and take ownership. Hey, I'm the guy that's in charge of this damn thing. And I like how he came out there and put on a show, in my opinion. I thought he played a very, very good football game. Jalen Jones on the defensive side of the ball. Really gritty day for him. Couple of picks for him as well. I like his attitude out there, not for anything. Now, do I think that Jalen Jones ultimately, when all is said and done, should be your best corner forever? No, probably not. Definitely not, right? That's not who he is. But does Jalen Jones have the traits to be a player that is damn good in this league for a long time? Yeah, I do. I absolutely think he does. I like what I saw out of Jalen Jones today. And overall, listen, a fine showing from the defense. If you're going to hold a team to 16 points, you should win the game more often than not, particularly with what we can do on the offensive side of the ball. That being said, what we can do hasn't been what we have been doing. So we're going to talk about that. Before we even get into the Anthony Richardson side of things, let's just shout out Jonathan Taylor, right? I mean, he is something very, very special at the running back position. His patience as a runner, I mean, there's a number of times where he turns what would be a 3-yard gain for most backs into something that's 10, 15, 20 yards. And it's just nice to see the Colts try to run this offense through him on a day like today. That's the formula to win with a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, who is struggling, quite frankly, and really trying to, ease into the game and kind of ease into the season and really ease into his career as a starter at the quarterback position in the NFL. He's coming into his own. Getting the ball to Jonathan Taylor and running this offense through him, that's how you're going to do it, right? That's how you're going to set Anthony Richardson up for success. Nice to see them come out there and get that done today against really a game Chicago defense. That's a pretty good defense that the Colts versed today. Now, as far as Richardson goes, the first question you have to ask, right, when you even have a dialogue about him is, what are the lens that we are judging him through? Or what is the lens that we are judging him through, right? That's ultimately the question, because if you're judging him through the lens of he should go out there and play like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Justin Herbert or some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, you're obviously going to be very, very upset with what you see every single week. And that's not to say that he's even playing a little bit worse than them. Like, he's playing significantly worse than those guys are playing. I'm not going to sit here and beat around the bush, and we can microanalyze the game if you want and find some bad decisions. But in my opinion, it is far more bad throws from Richardson that we're seeing than bad decisions. I'll use a first drive as an example, right? 0 for 3, right? 0 completions, 3 incompletions on that first drive, but all good decisions from him, right? I mean, the broken screen play that they had, throws that one into the ground, great. You have a drop by Josh Downs as he starts to kind of get settled in. Okay, fine. But then you have a spot where you look, Alec Pierce, he sees him, he's open, it's a first down. The ball flat out just sailed on him. I mean, that has been the status quo with Anthony Richardson up to this point. We saw it again later in the game. I forget exactly the time where in the game it was, right? It's just a play off the top of my head, but you had that 3rd and 3 where they snuck downs out into the flat, and you just saw Anthony Richardson just airmail that thing. Right now for him, it's a mechanical issue, right? He's arm throwing. That's what you'd call it, right? And we kind of had a discussion about this, man, late last week or something like that. And I was saying inaccuracy could come from one of two things, right? Mechanics are one thing, and that's the part that everyone talks about. But the other part is kind of just a lack of confidence or a level of indecision, really. Because a lack of confidence, I don't think he lacks confidence, but I think there's a level of indecision. And when that happens and you're not confident in the throw that you're making in that moment, and if you go and watch the replay of that 3rd and 3 to Josh Downs, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. You kind of get this indecision and you don't follow through on the throw because ultimately you're not 100% sure that what you're seeing is an open guy, right? And I don't know how, because Josh Downs was as open as it gets in the league, but whatever it was, you had a moment of indecision from Anthony Richardson, and that's when he arm throws it, and that's when it sails on you. You got to bring those things down. That has to get figured out, right? It just has to get figured out. The way he's going to do it, easier said than done in the speed of a game, but he's an NFL quarterback, so he's got to do it, is you got to step into the throw and drive that thing, right? I know you have a big arm. I know it's spectacular, but at some point you're going to have to stop throwing with only arm because that's how you're getting all of these inaccuracies, right? I think a lot, and I think, again, it's going to get worked out with reps. I think a lot of people are going to look, though, when I say he's making good decisions, and they're going to look at that ugly interception in the end zone, right? In the red zone. What was it like? I don't know. Was it like a 3rd and goal from like the 3-yard line or something like that? I don't know. Listen, that was an ugly interception, okay? That was a bad decision. Now, that being said, two things can be true at once, right? In my opinion, Shane Steichen on that play call is not doing him any favors, right? That is far too fancy of a call at that part of the field, in my opinion. I mean, you're just giving him too many decisions to make. Not that he can't make decisions, but you have a guy here that's young, and Shane knows this. It's not that he doesn't know this. I think he might like to have that play call back. Again, both things can be true. I think that's a bad call by Shane Steichen because they were just flat out outnumbered over there. I mean, it was like 3 or 4 Chicago defenders to 2 Colts, right? So not really great in the numbers game on that front. So bad call by Shane and an even worse decision by Anthony Richardson. But I got to look at the coach in that circumstance as well, though, and just say, hey, you're not exactly putting him in the best position in that specific moment. I just feel it's necessary to point out. All in all, I mostly see, and this is my summary of Anthony Richardson, I mostly see good decisions. Again, if you're to look through the course of a game with any quarterback, right, you're going to see some bad ones, but it's far more good decision, bad throw from Richardson, and we're at the point in his career right now where I'm more than willing to be patient with that type of thing, giving all of the context that I don't feel the need to cover right now. I think a lot of you get my point, right? Now, there's no guarantee that that gets worked out, but I'm going to tell you why I'm confident that it will. Some of you are going to think I'm reaching with what I'm about to say, but you got to trust me sometimes. Have I proven myself to understand the game of football enough for you to just trust me on some things, okay? What I'm about to say matters, okay? Anthony Richardson's body language is about as good as it gets, right? Like really, really good. When things aren't going well for him and this Colts offense, he's always even-keeled, never gets too high when things are going too well, never gets too low when things are going bad. It just always kind of keeps his head up and just sees the next play, right? It is what it is. Again, bad decisions in there. Another one that I forgot to mention before was, he tried to do too much. It was the same drive, actually, that I was referencing. He went 0 for 3 on good decisions. He also tried to do way too much, breaking that sack that could have resulted in a turnover. Fair call by the refs. But my point, not to digress, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss that because I knew people were going to bring it up. And now I'm out here rebuttaling your guys' points in advance, right? But my point with Anthony Richardson, I think he has the mental toughness, right, that you need from a guy at that position, particularly one that is going to have to deal with the ups and downs of growing, right? He's a football player that enjoys playing football. There's no point where Anthony Richardson looks like he doesn't want to be out there. I think that, like his body language and what I'm seeing and the way he carries himself out there, coupled with the support system that he has in Shane Steichen, with Joe Flacco in the room, right? All of those things. I think the team, the players believe in him. All of those things, I think, are going to result in us ultimately seeing a better Anthony Richardson as this season progresses. I think it bodes well for his long-term success, okay? patience, as I say, is what's required with Anthony Richardson specifically, right? You don't buy stock in Apple to return 100% next week, right? That's kind of what your penny stocks are for, okay? Apple, or in this case, Anthony Richardson, it's a metaphor, okay? It's an investment over time. And I think if with enough patience, if you don't sell your stock now, you're going to come out very far ahead on Anthony Richardson. And I think that's the mentality that we have to take as a fan base right now. Next Sunday, Pittsburgh. That's a 3-0 football team that, to my memory, the Colts have next to no success against just about ever. All the games that I could think of off the top of my head against Pittsburgh are nothing but disaster for the Indianapolis Colts. But that's going to be an opportunity for them to really swing the momentum, the Colts that is, on this season, right? You saw the Texans get kind of smacked around today. They're 2-1. All of a sudden, the Colts come out next week. If they're 2-2, you're live on the season, right? I mean, you have something to play for. Not that we're winning a Super Bowl, not the point, but hell, we sit here and watch the games every week. We still want them to play well, right? So that's where we're at. That's my reaction to the game. I think I'm going to expand on Anthony Richardson a little more some point earlier in the week because I know it's going to be a hot discussion. With every game like that happens from him, you're going to get more and more people jumping off the ship. Got to make sure to reel that in. It's the first month of the season, and he hasn't even started a full season's worth of games. There's just context that matters, right? But without further ado, that was the game reaction. Enjoy the rest of your football Sunday, Monday Night Football, and your week. Until next time, my name is Justin. This right here was the Ride the Bench Colts podcast. Like, subscribe, all that bullshit. But as always, go Colts.